How old are you?
35.
Oh, you're a baby. You're a baby. Okay, so when I was a kid, every
Hmm.
single day they would have the death count on the news from Vietnam. How many Americans
Hmm.
versus Vietnamese? And so I grew up in the middle of all of that. And then I lived in a house with really well-educated nuns and priests that would come over on the weekends that were family that would talk
Hmm.
about Vietnam in ways no one else was talking about. And
Hmm.
I so I watched all that develop and the stuff in Cambodia that basically everybody knew, but everybody just kind of winked and looked the other way. And so
Yeah.
I don't know from your perspective, India or England, what the news was when you were younger, because it's mostly, not mostly, especially 30 years ago, it was basically controlled in England. So
Hmm.
I don't know how that plays out now, but for anyone that's listening, you and I are talking about a series on Netflix called how to Make a Tyrant, or How a
How
Tyrant is Made.
to how to become a tyrant, I guess.
There you go. Even better. Yeah, it's like the YouTube dad that doesn't yell. It's
Hmm.
it's a step by step. But so all of those people that you witnessed there, outside of the guy in Germany, I didn't
Hmm.
have any exposure to any of that, but I did to all of those other people. I still remember Idi Amin because he seemed like the nicest, gregarious, great guy, and he was just murdering people right and left.
Oh yeah, he comes across like this funny little
Uh-huh.
uncle that you have, and then you're like, oh
Right.
no.
Yeah. No, but he's the sick, twisted one. So I don't. What worries me at this point, and once again, I don't know how it is in India, or if you can even talk about that part of it. But over here, that's what's being sold. So I
Hmm.
don't know, and maybe it's because that series came out, but a lieutenant governor from either North Carolina or North Carolina or South Carolina
Hmm.
literally mentioned all of those people in a speech to Moms for Liberty, which is like the modern day version of the Tea Party. It's they're not a grassroots organization. It's a well organized machine.
Hmm.
And they were like, yeah, we need to be reading these people and studying these people. And Pol Pot was probably the worst one out of all of those. That was the guy who was in charge of Cambodia. And
Oh
when
yeah.
you're telling people that that's the guy you need to study, I'm a little concerned because, as you know, I'm on the ground here, and I don't
Hmm.
know if I'm getting, I don't know if I'm getting arrested or not. But the sworn affidavits are in. So
Can we please go through that? Because I just saw that on
okay,
Facebook that you got.
oh yeah, I was doing a GoFundMe for my legal fees. Let me tell you why. Because there's an actual
Mhm.
reason for that. You know, I'm a bit of a prideful prick. So ordinarily, I would never ask anybody for anything. But I had a
Mhm.
teacher friend of mine and go, look, you're working for our struggle. Give people the opportunity to kick in $5 or $10 towards your legal fees because you would not have them if you hadn't been
Mhm.
fighting for our struggle. And I'm like, okay, I
Yeah.
will. And so I probably literally already got half of what I need for my legal fees in 2 days. And
Oh wow.
and God bless it. Yeah, God bless everybody who kicked in, and they went from $5 to $200, I think was the biggest one. All right. So the
Mhm.
actual story, I'm not asking any listeners for money, but if you want to, I'm willing. so, so
Find him on GoFundMe, but also do follow our podcast on
right.
Spotify. Look at me have to shamelessly plug the show while you're fighting for a nice cause.
Well, so here's the weird thing, and this is something you and I assume probably are 100% in agreement on. Education is the only way out of poverty.
Oh yeah.
If you started lower or lower middle class, what are your guys?
Mhm.
Untouchables. What's the next one up?
The next one,
And you
if
guys get
it
some
would,
crazy ass names for your
yeah,
stuff.
we do have some weird ones.
Untouchables is about as shitty as it gets. No pun intended. That's a mean, but I
Oh
assume it's
no.
intended to. It's intended to be mean, right?
Hmm.
Okay. Well, anyway, a couple of bottom rung folks. It's the only way out, and so being another occupied country like you guys were from the Brits, that was it. If you weren't educated, you literally working on it doesn't matter how smart you are, how great you are at inventing things. If you don't have an education, you can't go anywhere with it. So I've always grown up knowing that, and I find it important for the next generation of Americans. I don't understand why we're trying to dumb down the next generation. There's only so many people we can import from all over the world to do these things. We do need some homegrown ideas here. We do.
Yeah.
So that being said, I go to our state school board meeting, and I've talked about this guy Ryan Walters a few times. And for those internationals listening, this guy is literally a white supremacist, and he gave the white power sign to our version of the Congress here in Oklahoma, which is our House and our Senate. It's designed the same way as the U.S. House and Senate is, if you're familiar, kind of like the House of Commons and Lords in England, but you guys they were way more fun over there. Ours is a little more stiff. So if you're flashing the white power sign there while you are doing an incompetent job, and he is there to end our education system, and he just makes no bones about it. He's fired everyone around him. So you look at the show we were watching, he has these people bring him into office, and then he turns on all of them and he's dropping them one by one. But instead of back in the day when you were man enough to kill somebody, he just fires them, and tries to shut them up. Yeah. I mean, he needs to go back and read Machiavelli if he's really going to do some stuff, because Machiavelli lines it all out pretty well. You don't need to watch this show to get it. But so I am a very vocal advocate for public education. I went to private education. I sent my kids to private education. There's nothing wrong with public education. If you want to be smart, you will at least go as far as your mother went or a little bit further just on your own. But if you really want to do well, you have to do a thing called study groups. Now, your people, excellent at it. Other agents, excellent at it. There's groups in the world that are great at it, but the pride in the white community, Hispanic community, and African-American community does not allow us to say we need to be in a group to become better. Our whole mantra in life is that we personally have to be better. It's just ridiculous.
Individualism.
Right. And it's killing us. It is literally killing us. So I'm preaching a lot here, Deepak. I'm sorry.
I know.
So yeah. Thank you for allowing me that. So,
preach, brother. Go on.
How many people do you say education is what matters these days? Not too many. All right. So the deal is, I go to these meetings, and I know this guy's a fraud. I've watched him through his whole campaign and everything else. And I've been in politics my entire life, so I can spot these guys a mile away. Yeah. They may be good at saying rhetoric. And for those of you who don't know what rhetoric is, Google it. It just means you're saying things 3 times. You're trying to get the same message across and stuff. So he's okay at rhetoric, but he's really turning out to not be very smart. And that is even more insulting because he's in charge of public schools. And you and I have talked about him a few times, and I always go, I don't know if this guy's rickrolling us or if he's really this stupid. I think I've determined he is really this stupid. I am trying to find a way to get him out of office before he ruins our public ed system here. People worldwide think American schools suck. And what it is American schools don't suck. Specific American schools suck. And it's usually in communities that need education the most. And we have figured out ways to underfund them, not send the best people, assume that they just are incapable of learning. And then we started stuff called charter schools, and that pulled off the best parents and students, and not the best parents, but the parents who are engaged in education. So they move their kids to another school where all of the parents are engaged. It's basically a private school, and the kids do better, but it leaves behind all of these other kids that now no longer get to see a professional, a doctor, a physician, a lawyer, nurses, teachers as your friends' parents. Where if your parents weren't of that level, you at least got to see these other people, so it's possible. You have something to strive to. And we've eliminated that entire network. It's gone. And now we're doing it further by funding private schools that are religious based. And that is a huge deal here in America. We like to keep religion separated because, you know, I mean, India and Pakistan, why are you guys separated? Religion. England, Scotland, Wales, Ireland. Why have we fought for 2,000 years? Religion. So I'm neither for or against any religion. Whoever you want to give your money to, give it to them. I don't care. But I don't want to pay for your kids to go there. So I've been on this guy. I think it's fair to say I've latched onto this guy's leg about almost a year ago. And God forbid anybody latches onto my leg like I do other people. But I have just crucified him, and he keeps rolling along. And so at these meetings, you're allowed to get up and speak for 3 minutes. And I have never been disrespectful to the guy at a meeting. I am online, but I'm that way to a bunch of people online, and they're that way to me. But in the meetings, I've been respectful. So there's Thursday night, Wednesday night, and then Thursday's the meeting, I think is the actual recall. And there is a conservative PAC meeting called OC PAC. And they are telling people that these radical liberals have been going to the meetings and causing mayhem, which was quite frankly not true, but stirring up their base. And their base are older. They're not young people. They're older. They got the time, and they're telling them they do all the stuff I do, which is kind of irritating, and I'm actually proud of them for doing it the right way. They showed videos of how to get into the building, where to park. I mean, these are literally all things that I did. And so I show up the next day, and all these people are out front, and one of them's got like 10 flags hanging off his car and stuff. So I know it's going to be a little rambunctious. So I go in, there are 2 men blocking the door to go into the meeting. And in America, we have a thing called the Open Meetings Act. If it's open, anybody can get in. But if you're the one putting it on and you're expecting more people, you're supposed to get a bigger venue so it's comfortable. And these guys haven't done it. They purposely done it so everyone's squeezed into one room because they want something to happen. And what they think is some guy like me is going to snap. And I don't snap in those situations. I've been in 100 of them, man. These amateurs don't have any idea what they're dealing with. So these 2 old guys, one of them, older gentleman, one of them is giving out numbers to people for seats inside the building. And he has no right to do this. He is not in charge. But everybody starts thinking he works for the state of Oklahoma because he has nice printed numbers. I mean, this is how you become a tyrant. You control who goes in the room. There's only 30 seats in the room, Deepak. And how many numbers does he have? 30.
30. What a dick.
Right. and they've been given to his friends. And sorry, I'm looking at my bread real quick. And they've been given to his friends, and then a couple of other people. So I can't say you only gave them to your friends. The large majority of them were to his friends. So I walk in, and there's a young lady that wants to speak, and I go, "Oh God, you're the most important person here because, she was 12 or something." And I go, "Because you're still in school. The rest of us are just, we have an opinion on it. None of us have been in school for 30 years. We got grandkids or kids in there." She goes, "Well, okay." And I go, "But you got to move towards the front. These people are going to block the front so they can get the seats first and control the environment." And she's puzzled. And I go, "Here, let me show you how it's done." And I go, "Move up front. I don't push anybody or anything else. There's a hole that develops." And I go in, and then I see these people with numbers. And they're like, "Yeah, all the numbers have been given away." And I'm like, "What numbers?" And they go, "The numbers for the seats inside." And I'm like, "Where the hell were the numbers given out? Where's the sign saying I needed to get a number? Where's the information piece on this? Where's somebody that works here that knows what the hell's going on?" Nobody knows anything about it. And this older guy that turns out his nickname is Old Ranger, and then this big old 6'5", 270 guy are the ones blocking the door. And Old Ranger goes, "Yeah, the tickets have already been let out." And I go, "Who in the F?" I'm like, "Who in the F are you?" And
tickets is a lot of weight for little shitty pieces of numbers.
So I go, "You got no right to be handing out papers. Do you work for the state?" And he goes, "No, I don't." And I go, "Then what then the fuck are you doing? This is not your job." Because I see that they're essentially choosing the audience to go inside. Very tyrant move. You don't let any of the opposition in, but it looks like you have a fair and open meeting. So some lady next to him starts, yelling, "Are you a teacher?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not a teacher. Why?" And she goes, "Because you just cussed." And I go, "Yeah, I own a pub. Nobody cares what I say." I mean, it's a very low bar. And so I'm paying attention to who's talking to me to see if they're all working together, because that's what matters to me. Are you working together to keep us out?
Yeah.
So since that day, I have an argument back and forth with him. Some teacher tries to go by and go into the room, and the big old giant guy grabs her and pulls her. Now, I'm going to cut this guy some slack and say, I don't think he intended to assault her, but he was double her size. So when he pulled her, she hit a wall and dropped to the ground. That's straight up assault. So this guy in a black polo and khaki pants comes out and gets in the middle of that and tries to straighten it out. And then the big guy starts kind of wanting to fight with him and bumps up against his chest a couple of times. The guy turns out to be Department of Public Safety, which is police. But I did not know that at the time. So they asked this guy to leave, and he leaves. And then this Department of Public Safety guy, who I don't know who he is, comes up and tells me I've got to keep it down and get orderly or something like that, or you can't go in. And he goes, "You need to go outside." And I go, "No, I'm not going anywhere. I came here to speak. These guys are blocking the door." And as soon as I say that, he goes, "Ah!" And I'm like, "What?" I go, "These guys are black." And he keeps interrupting me with these weird noises like, "Ah, ah, ah."
Oh God.
And I'm like, what kind of grown ass man talks like this? Seriously. And so nothing gets solved on that. He goes back in to take care of the big old tall dude. And this other guy puts his walker in front of me, Deepak. It's a Saturday Night Live video at this point. His walker. And then he goes,
You can't do anything, Sean.
I know, right. And thank God the Oklahoman, our local newspaper, had a camera on me from behind, because I've got a file in my left hand. So you can see I'm not swinging at him, threatening or anything. And yes, I'm loud. He's violating my First Amendment rights and my right to assemble. I'm pissed. And so he's like, "Let the lady through at the walker." I go, "No, this is first come, first serve. We all get through." He's like, "No, you are not a gentleman, sir." Whatever.
Oh no!
What made you think that was the case?
Is this like the 1800s? Was he gonna remove a?
You have cursed in front of the ladies, and this guy, dude, I don't even know what to do with it. It's so crazy. And so I'm just waiting to go in, and he gets in front of me like face to face. I'm gonna fight you kind of thing. But he keeps trying to say these really weird, antiquated terms. "Sir, you need to have manners," and this and this. And I'm like, "Yeah, you're violating my rights. The manners are out." That's what I found weird. This guy's violating literally the biggest thing in the Constitution, my First Amendment rights. And he's lecturing me about not being a gentleman about it.
Nah.
Right. Kind of classic. And you're not behaving properly in this fight, like chivalry or some BS like that. And you go, "No, I'm here to take care of things." So two highway patrol.
You just look at him and be like, "Please shut the fuck up and move from my way."
I did more than once. And then he would come back with some weird retort that made no sense. So the highway patrol would come and take me out of the building, and I'm going out, and so I'm paying attention to everybody I'm seeing. And then the next day, I get a video of a meeting the night before where all those people were doing the planning. Everybody that was aggravating the circumstance was more than likely at that meeting. But especially, and I hate to say this, a Catholic priest, my people, was there, and he was at the meeting the next day as well. So what gets weird is we get out in front, and this guy, I'm like, "What in the hell did you make me leave the meeting for? I had a right to speak." And there he goes, "You're inciting a riot." And I go, "Sir, you've never been in a riot, have you? This isn't inciting." I was arguing with one guy. He goes, "Nope, you were arguing with all these people." And I go, "Because all of his friends kept yelling stuff at me while I was arguing with him." I said, "I have a right to say something back." He goes, "Nope, you're inciting a riot." And I go,
Okay.
I need you to stop saying that, sir. I'll call my lawyer and he can explain to you what inciting a riot means, because obviously something missing." And I keep trying to explain to him what the guy is doing with the numbers. That guy's still inside while myself and the big giant dude are outside. And Yeah, so this guy gets angry enough or frustrated enough with me to go get me a complaint form. I fill it out, and he goes inside and finds out that I'm telling the truth about the guy with the numbers and everything.
Okay.
Here's what saves my ass as a protester. He on camera says to everybody, this man does not work for the state of Oklahoma. I don't know why he's giving numbers to you, but they don't count. It's an open meeting. None of these numbers count. Verifying every damn thing I'd said. So it looks like everything's over at this point. They let those two guys go. And the guy goes, well, what are you going to do? And I go, well, you ruined my opportunity to speak. So I'll just go over and do some social media, and 40,000 people will see it that way. I mean, he goes, sounds good. And he leaves. So, right. And I'm like, so you got a guy that assaulted a cop, got to leave. A guy faking like he was a state employee and blocking access to people to a room, and they both got to leave. Okay. And you think I was inciting a riot, and I get to leave. Only in this world could this happen. So,
Sean, if you had got a heavy tan that day, gone.
Oh, dude, you know they'd have beat me. They'd have beat me senseless. Oh yeah. Yeah, I assumed that was inferred in my conversation there. I'm trying to stay out of legal trouble. Because believe me, somebody will be listening to this tomorrow, and they'll be trying to find one little sentence that I got wrong. So nothing happens for about a week, and I get a message from somebody showing that these two gentlemen have been charged, or not charged, but an affidavit. So an affidavit is where it starts. The officer writes a sworn statement saying, this is what I saw, which was not entirely accurate, I can point out. But so then the district attorney or the attorney general, because we don't even know who governs this area because it's Capitol grounds. Who's in charge? Right. Oh, yeah, it's complicated. And then they charge you with a crime, and you either surrender or they come get you, a perp walk, which, believe me, I'll call my publicist before that shit. So I think that these two guys have been charged having no idea they'd sent in an affidavit on me as well. And I'm like, yeah, right. So I'm like, the hell did I do? Inciting a riot and interfering with government business is what they're saying I did. Now, what's sad is I have to hire a lawyer to get ready to defend myself, and I had to remove, funds from the bank to cover bail in case I get arrested. All of this shit for being the victim. I know, and literally, I know everybody says they're not guilty. I'm guilty of being louder, but I didn't incite a riot, and there was no meeting going on, so there was no business to interfere. There has to be business to interfere to get charged with that, right? So none of that matters. Anyway, I had this teacher, and she goes, hey, look, you're doing all this stuff for us and the kids in the schools. Do a GoFundMe and let us all share the misery and chip in a couple of dollars. And then these guys know that you have support. So if they do it next month or the following month, they know that you're not going to run out of money. Isn't that crazy? So that was a long ass goddamn story, Deepak.
I know, but it is so weird. Like, we always, outsiders looking in, always just assume that America works perfectly, especially with my immigrant mentality, right? I always look at it and I'm like, oh my God, it almost doesn't sound like you're describing something that happened there.
Right. So my concern here is groups like the Moms for Liberty that are openly, they quoted Adolf fucking Hitler on some of their advertising. Now, you and I both know from being in marketing, it's a test. How much attention did it get? Well, it got national attention. So now all of a sudden they're this national group, and then they've got these elected officials. And I didn't say that guy from North or South Carolina, whichever one it was, the lieutenant governor, was black. And he's saying this stuff. And you go, and they can manage to find some shitbag somewhere to say these crazy things, but you and I both know that's how you get in the news.
Yeah.
If it bleeds, it leads. Yeah.
Think about it. They made the Ryan Walters story of him talking about critical race theory not being about color. That got
Yeah.
Guardian, the BBC. I saw it on the Times of India.
Oh, dear Lord. I'm so sorry.
I
So
know.
here's, for any of you listening, that guy is my nemesis. Literally, that is the person I'm fighting against right there. So that the day all of the legal stuff goes out, I had agreed to do 2 television interviews. As you know, when you're getting charged with a crime, you're not supposed to go in, do interviews because you'll say stupid shit, right? Well, I'd already promised to do it, so I had to fall through with him. And then that night is that meeting where he said that. And a friend of mine that is works somewhere in publishing, let's put it that way, goes, man, you're not going to Norman tonight, are you, Sean? And I go, no, I'm going to take one day off. And that's when all that shit happened.
Oh, wow.
I mean, right. But I'm happy I wasn't there because they'd have tried to figure out some way to get me again. And, you know, that is, so he has officially become a tyrant. When you have an item called the Tulsa Race Massacre, and you literally, your white power people, you're saying, well, I don't want to teach it to be about race.
Might as well just call it the Texas Chainsaw Massacre in that case, right? If you want to remove the word race from it.
Right. Well, and so I don't think people around the world understand how much genocide took place in America. We not only wiped out most of the natives, and that, you know, I mean, the same way they did with you guys. Separate the tribes, you go after them one at a time with an organized army. That is very much like the standard. What's the name of the British company that wasn't really the British company?
The East India Company, which was technically their military arm, I guess.
Right. Yeah, they're the gray shirts of England and India. So we had the same stuff here. And then what people didn't know is as cultures start to do better, I don't know what happened on that deal in Tulsa to spark it, nor does it matter. They burned down their entire area of the city and literally killed as many people as you could. And some way or another, it was covered up for 100 years.
Yeah.
Totally. So my wife and I, she was running for statewide office, and we're in Tulsa. And we're in Greenwood where it happened, and they've got like a museum there. And she's speaking at an event, and we have never heard of it in our lives. Ever.
Wow.
And she is running for lieutenant governor at the time. So we meet the 3 surviving people that were still alive. We see all this stuff and we're like, what in the hell happened here? And years later, I had a guy that worked for me and he goes, yeah, my grandpa was one of the guys flying the planes over the top, dropping gasoline bombs on the houses. And I was like, are you shitting me? And this guy was Jewish. And I was like, how are you as a Jew okay with him bombing an entire black neighborhood? And he goes, well, I mean, I'm not okay with it, but that's what happened. I was like, shit. So these were just random citizens. The newspaper had basically a front page call out for everybody to go down there and take care of things. And they burn it to the ground.
So the Guardian had actually given background on that. It started with an article in the newspaper about a black guy. They said that he misbehaved with someone on an elevator or something.
Hit on a white girl in an elevator, which, you know, back then it's the South. Oof. Yeah, that'll get you killed back then. But it wouldn't get everyone killed. It would just get you killed.
Yeah, to 300 people and
and the biggest thing is this was a thriving business community, and you look at it and go, look, we live in a state of defeated people. So we have former slave African Americans, we've got native tribes are all beat, except the Osage Indians were not beat. Just by the way, the Osage Nation, they bought their land, but all the other defeated tribes were moved here. The Scots-Irish that basically were either starved out of Ireland and Scotland so the Brits could come through and graze cattle. And that's essentially what we are comprised of here. So the fact that all of these other folks would turn on this specific community and commit genocide which I don't know why we call it anything other than genocide. I mean, you eliminated their town and built a fucking highway over it and a baseball park.
Yeah, that would
like
be
nothing
a
happened.
definition of genocide, right?
Right. I mean, let's see, what did they have in common? They were all black. Oh, okay. And who killed them? Those were white people, and they did it on the ground, in the air, and everything else. And you go, oh, that's legitimately genocide. That's what genocide is. Shit, Deepak, it's nuts that we're still arguing over this nuance, and this is over not wanting to make the parents and children feel uncomfortable for the actions of their grandparents.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not their fault, but it would be okay to tell the truth at this point.
Yeah.
So
you should be able to see that was the main purpose of even in South Africa, the end of apartheid. They
Correct.
did have that Truth and Reconciliation Commission. It was supposed to be that way. And Desmond Tutu was this huge proponent of the confessions of the white prisoners. I mean, the white wardens of those different jails were important to help the Black community move forward.
Right.
And
so
live together.
What ends up happening with somebody like me is this kind of stuff will come up, and I'm like anybody. I'm like, hey, we had nothing to do with it. Nobody from my family was even in the country. You know, and so I get that. That doesn't mean I don't want to know about it. That makes sense. But if my dad did it, Jesus, I'd be like, Dad, what the fuck were you thinking? Jesus.
The worst part was, I think I found out about it on that HBO show called Watchmen, till I realized it was a true story. So a couple of years ago, this was when I lived in the village, and there was the show on HBO where it was like this weird. It's like, I think it's based on a DC comic or whatever the hell. And in that, part of the show is technically shot in Tulsa, where they show this entire massacre.
Wow.
And in that show, they use the actual footage that was there.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
Like there's little crop dusting planes.
That's the guy's grandpa.
Oh, wow.
And I don't, fuck, if that was my grandpa, for one, I would just lie and say, we evidently lived here at the time, but I think we were out of town, some crazy. So the challenge to all of that also is we had just recently become a state. So we didn't really have, we didn't have an organized, the whole state had different governments, tribal lands, all this other stuff. Very confusing, much like where we are right now again. It's confusing as to who has legal rights over anything at this point. But I know I don't. I own my little house. I don't have anything on the other stuff. But it is, I don't know. I don't know. Deepak, this is, did I ever tell you about my kid's mom going back to Ireland? I don't want to bore everybody with more. Okay, so my kid's mom is native. So she's Dutch, so she's like 6 foot tall, and then she's Choctaw and Seminole, and so she had more, the jet black hair, big giant black eyes, beautiful, absolutely beautiful, and so we go back to Ireland, and one of my cousins, and this is nobody's even been drinking yet, just goes, hey, we're glad you're here and everything, but before anything else, man, I just want to apologize for the stuff that our people did to your people. We just didn't know any better. That's what the English did with us. And we just thought, oh, that's what we got to do to these people to get to own some land and grow some stuff. And I just want you to know. And she goes, oh, that's okay. And he goes, no, it's not okay. It's horrific. And I'm embarrassed that our people who should have known better did that. And she goes, oh, don't worry about it. And he goes, and you could see he's like, is there some kind of fucking disconnect with her that she did? But she didn't. She never talked about being native, and her relatives that I met said they were Black Dutch. They would never say that they were native, so they never had any connection with any of it. And she was like, it's okay, and he was like, no, it's not okay. So it ended up being my cousin over there, and I sat there and went, oh, that's how this stuff kind of needs to work. Huh.
Yeah.
She was uncomfortable for a minute, but it was nice, and at least it's out there because it was mostly poor, uneducated Scots Irish and Germans that they, send in to go clean these guys out.
Oh yeah. They were disposable.
Right. Yeah. They didn't give two shits about us either. And they, half the time, they probably went and shooting us after we cleared them out. America's past is so ugly. But
Sean, it's like the infrastructure problem, right? Anytime America needed infrastructure first, they were like, just throw some Chinese at that problem, they'll fix it. Next, they were like, throw the Irish at it, they'll nail those railroads down.
Right. So I used to work with this Chinese guy. He sold liquor to my restaurant, and he was like, you know what? I'm trying to remember the way he put it because I don't want to say it wrong, but it was something like a lucky Chinaman or the lucky China, whatever the deal was. And it was because they would all be down in the tunnels and they didn't know on payday whether they were going to drop bombs down to kill them or pay them.
Really? They did that?
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. Well, I mean, think of Australia. So it was a penal colony. It was a British penal colony, and they've turned out pretty well. And I don't know why we didn't find some more middle ground. I think we seem to be more a little on the extremes, But Australia was like, well, this is where we are. Let's make the best of it. But they did the same stuff to the Aborigines there.
Oh yeah. Anything horrible that has happened in the world, you will find some semblance of the British presence there.
Exactly. Yeah. They either organized it or taught everybody how to do it, one or the other. Jeez. So I think a couple of other things here in Oklahoma, I got to figure out a way to say this so somebody doesn't use it against me in a campaign. Because I got obviously a bunch of people I know that are native, and they go, and you go, hey, but you guys are making money now. You got casinos, you got this. And they go, yeah, it's because we finally got white lawyers. We used to use our own people and send them to law school and everything. And they were like, no, these white lawyers seem to do something different. And they believe that's what brought them up, those specific people. Probably not everybody, but yeah, isn't that crazy? Well, different way to fight. Yeah.
Crazy times all over the world. We're back now from commercial break with Sean's technical problems.
Thank God I had somebody that could tell me what to do. Us old people. Okay, when we were leaving to break, we were talking about the Netflix series How to Become a Tyrant, and oddly enough, I just did a TikTok video on us talking about it in India. so here's the thing. So this guy gets worldwide attention.
We're talking about Ryan Walters.
Yes, Ryan Walters, our state school superintendent, who none of us should even know his name if he was doing his job properly. Like we should never even hear about him. Schools would work fine and everything else. So he gets all of this worldwide attention. That just brings in more money for him.
Yeah. Can you imagine the nut jobs all over the world who donated to his campaign after they read that article in The Guardian saying that this guy is an idiot?
Right. And religious extremists, which oddly enough, we've gone to war with other countries and probably took down Tony Blair for joining us in the deal in Iraq, ended his career, getting suckered into that deal.
Leave the coalition of the willing alone, damn it.
Come on, man, there's a gang fight. You got to get in. So the deal with Ryan. So here's the guy's administration. So there's Ryan, and there's 3 30-year-old men. So there's 4 30-year-old men. 2 of the guys don't even have children. So why they would have even opinions on school is beyond me. And they brought this guy up from Texas, who most of the people he's ever worked for lose or get not voted back in office because he just says all this stupid, weird, crazy shit that it's even hard to argue with because it's so stupid. You know what I mean? And I like to argue with people, but I don't like to argue with stupid people because it doesn't turn out well. So Ryan is looking for higher office. I know our governor thought he was going to be DeSantis's vice president. Evidently, that's supposedly off the table. And magically, he quit saying crazy shit once that was off the table.
Yeah.
And Ryan Walters still must think he's in play for a national position of some sort. But he can't talk in front of an audience. He trips up really easy. So what's weird is he was a history teacher.
What?
And yeah, he was a history teacher. That's why he knows how to do this. And so he's from a place called McAllister, Oklahoma, which is Little Dixie. You know, they've still got some white supremacy issues down there and everything else. But he originally was a good guy and taught in inner city schools. And we have Zoom calls of him teaching proper history about the Tulsa race riot. Proper history. And then, yeah. I mean, we got everything on this idiot. But the people that voted him in, most of them just don't seem to care. I mean, because all they've ever heard is, we've got a segment on one of our local newscasts that are like, chaos in the classroom at 6. And they've been teasing these guys on this stuff. And you know, tell everybody what the big lie is, Deepak.
Which one at this point is what I have to ask you?
The theory of the big lie. Yeah.
You need to do that one.
Okay, folks, you just make some shit up. It can't be small. It's got to be huge. And then you just keep saying it. You know, we really don't have chaos. And yeah,
say it till everybody believes it and nobody has any way to counter that stupid point.
You keep the people out of the open meetings that would ask you about it.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So it is, it's an amazing thing to watch the rise of this guy because he came from nowhere. He was a lobbyist for charter schools and I can't remember the name of the deal, but it was to privatize education. And the governor brought him, the governor brought him in as Secretary of Education and had him on this board, which you don't have to do anything. You just get $40,000 a year for being on the board. Now, would I like that job? Yes, I would, especially if I didn't have to do any work. But you know, now that he's a real player and he's on national news weekly, you know, this week he was on, you know, trying to explain the shit he said last week. And if you're explaining, you're losing. You know, that's the political thing.
What was the thing he said? Because I did see a news article where it said that he was trying to clarify what he mentioned about was that of any use?
No, oh God, no. Look, he was in a room full of teachers and they did the things that annoying students do to get to teachers. And it worked. You know, they questioned him on hard questions. They go, because he's an anti-CRT, which is critical race theory, which is usually only taught in colleges. But in Oklahoma, CRT would be, if you're not allowed to teach CRT, how do you teach the Tulsa race massacre? Because that is critical race theory. Whites did go kill all these blacks, burn their stuff down, and run them out of town. And somewhere or another, try to blame them for it. So if that would be critical, like you're saying, hey, you people, these people probably shouldn't have done this. And he wanted them to teach it without including race. And you
How do you even do that?
You can't.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's like saying like the Germans were taking a casual walk in Poland one afternoon. Can I do that with World War II?
just kept rolling on through like nothing happened. Yeah, I mean, there's no way to do that. It just doesn't exist. And so they called him on it. He's never. Here's the thing: the guy doesn't prepare. And I've always said I think he might have some issues with the booger sugar. And those of you who don't know what booger sugar is,
don't look it up. You'll get put on some list.
Exactly. His eyes are glazed over a lot, and not the normal way. I've owned bars for 40 years. I know what somebody looks like when they're high or drunk, and he's got the look. And I'm not saying he is. He's got the look, though. But he doesn't do his homework. And if you're going to be in politics, you need to be able to answer questions. Like if I'm a Democrat in Oklahoma, I've got to be able to talk to you about guns in a way that you feel like I understand what they are, because everybody here likes guns. They do. You're not going to get rid of them. You're not going to do anything about it. It would be great if we could quit having mass shootings. You know, that's probably the best way to go. Why don't you guys help me figure out a way to not have less mass shootings? I'm not trying to take anybody's guns. I'm good with it. Here's what my favorite ones to hunt with were, that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
if you don't know how to do that,
if you give them that option, that stupid NRA asshole will come out and be like, "Yeah, we need a good guy with a gun inside every class."
And so, I had a guy say that to me, and I go, "That can't be our answer to everything, because it's not working." So, how about you sit down and come up with an answer with me, and then I'm not the bad guy.
Yeah,
and then it's just silence. But you got to be able to talk about it. Hey, man, I have owned plenty of weapons in my life. I have no issues with them. But something's out of hand. You know, how about we study it and find out what's out of hand? I think that's fair. So I'm sure they'll pull this from that. When I'm speaking to them in 2 weeks, I'm going to hear back everything I've just said. But I'm okay with it. I can have an honest conversation about it. You know, but Ryan is ill prepared. And I've had people, so there's it's a Facebook page where all these educators go out there and talk about things. And they were talking about me getting thrown out of that meeting. And one of the guys was like, he is just too aggressive. And a bunch of these teachers were like, he's the only one that will do anything. And the guy's like, yeah, but I don't like it. And you go, what is the option? They're, you know, literally these people are beating the shit out of you. And some random guy comes up and goes, you want some help? And you go, yes. And so he beats up a few of the people and you go, well, I didn't say you should hit anybody. So I don't know. I think we're at a flux time with this guy. So here's one thing that I should have covered in the first half. So we have a guy that's become very wealthy with a group of stores called Quick Trip. And they've been around for 40 years or so. And he's very wealthy, and he's from Tulsa, Oklahoma. And he took out a full page ad in the Tulsa newspaper, which probably cost $20,000 or $30,000. I know it's not much money to him, but it would be to us. And it said, Ryan Walters, we are tired of your lying and BS, with the guy's name on the bottom. Regular, you know, staunch Republican voter. Yeah. And you go, when rich people are willing to spend their money against you, when generally the stuff you do helps them, you're in trouble. Yeah. So let me give you a couple of things that the guy could do to turn this around. So I'm in this. I talked to you about being in this 2A meeting the other week, and this guy got up and he talked about specifically black schools, and you know, the way he put it was terrible, but he wasn't wrong. That's the problem. You go, okay, can we just not say that first sentence and then I can listen to you? Yeah. Oh, shit. So why do we not have like the state's best reading teachers, like that have their own bus? And if your school is struggling with that, the bus pulls up and 40 of the best educators in reading come in and work with everybody. You don't have to keep doing it once somebody knows how to read. You teach them the enjoyment of reading. And they could go to the next school that was in need, and the next, like paratroopers, you know, just going in to help. How the hell has that not happened in a budget of $7 billion, which is, you know, we're paying anywhere from $5 to $7 billion. You go, and we really don't have a rapid strike force that goes in and does reading or math.
Yeah, just, you know, like tutors, right, to show up and just help the kids catch up or whatever.
Right. And look, the thing is you go to most jails and prisons, the illiteracy rate is 80% or higher. It's huge. So we know what it causes down the line. Would it be smart as a society to invest a few $100,000 or even million, couple of million, for a bus and these specific super educators that really, for some reason or another, they're gifted in teaching reading? If you can't read, especially with everything on a tablet, a phone, or a computer now, you're worse off than you were 20 years ago or 30 years ago, because you could get by with it then.
Yeah.
But there does seem to be a concerted effort to not educate this group of people any better.
Yeah.
And I don't think I'm wrong there. If your guy stands up, that's your education guy, and the 5 schools he points out all have one thing in common, and it's that they're African American, boy, how'd that happen? How are all these schools in Yukon, Moore, Edmond, all of these suburbs doing great?
Mm-hmm.
And then you look at these few inner city schools and they're not.
Yeah.
I mean, are those people inherently wrong, or do we go, hey, let's actually face the problem there is, which is reading. Reading's number one. If you can't read, nothing else works. You know, and we figure out a way to go in at first, second, and third grade, and we bring in the super teachers, figure out what the deal is. If there is an A team of teachers, not every teacher is the same. There are some that are brilliant at it, and there are some that don't. Probably should have chosen a different career.
Yeah.
So, right. Why didn't Ryan Walters do that? He could save his entire career by making that move.
Yeah.
But it doesn't help his base, which is the white power group. Right.
Why would you help the inner city schools when you can't even mention what they compromise of?
Right. Exactly. Yeah, that would be critical race theory teaching. Once you say that, he's the guy that made that you can't say it. It is. I just can't believe we're in this. We're in an area right now that I'm flabbergasted by. And you know what's good though? Let me tell you what's good about all this. And I feel like I've monopolized our conversation, so I'm sorry. The fact that I may get arrested over this shit may be the best thing that happens. Because people that look like me.
Yeah, weirdly enough, from my point of view, I was thinking about it and I was like, oh shit, if he actually gets charged, it probably does more good for this cause than anything else that has happened.
Yeah.
And it would kind of also put this state, I guess, in a very iffy predicament, because wouldn't it be the Attorney General who has to do it at that point? Since you were at the Capitol?
Since we're at the Capitol, I believe so. But look, I am not a lawyer or an expert in this, so I'm going to have to defer to somebody else. I don't know, but I look, we all, I don't want to sound like I'm important, but we all know each other. Yeah. I mean, we're not buddies. We've never had lunch together. I know him. He knows me. We see each other in a room. We nod. You know, we're not. I don't want to know the Attorney General that well. Because, that means I was doing some stupid shit. I knew the last Attorney General shit. I mean, I've known that guy for 20 years. I mean, I could literally, his phone's and numbers in my phone, call him up. And so this may be the best thing that happens is they arrest me. Because, I'm going to run it into the ground.
Oh, yeah. Sean, I don't even want you on national news. I don't know why I would want you on international news. That would just be annoying for me.
But we would get so many more listeners. So it's all in the way you look at it. I mean, you and I talk about more stuff here politically. I do a podcast on Tuesdays with a guy named Kit. And Kit and I talk about stuff, but we don't usually talk about theory. You and I talk about theory because we both come from the same weird political background. And what I mean by that is from an educational standpoint, you go, this is rhetoric. I mean, I can identify it right now. This boom, boom, boom is rhetoric. Rhetoric is only taught. OU is one of the weird schools that teaches it, but our politicians don't even know what it is. Except the guy that was a history teacher. Do what?
There's a course in OU?
Yeah, well, Keith Gaddy used to teach it. He's gone now, so I don't know if anybody does anymore. But it's rarely taught in America.
Do you know when I was taking those classes when I used to teach the kids who came into university, I guess their bachelor's degree at UCO. When I used to teach them introduction to advertising, I used to tell them about. But I used to tell it from the advertising perspective. I was like, do everything you can to tug at their heartstrings till their wallet falls out, and then you run.
And and I have to be honest with you. So I took psychology in college, and
Mhm.
everybody in the room were really soft and sweet. And I mean, everybody you kind of want to hang around your kids, maybe not be your kids, but hang around your kids because they're really good people. And then one day they're like, "Why are you here?" And I go, "Oh, I just want to understand how the human mind works so I can manipulate it." We're like, "What?" And I go, "Well, I mean, it is advertising. That is."
Hmm.
And I didn't realize how personal all of them took it that I said that. But I was like, "Shit! I mean, that's why I was there."
Hey, but I'll tell you, like the best thing that I always told anybody was that anything evil in the universe, I've done a little bit of work on it through
Right.
advertising or investment banking.
Oh yeah, undoubtedly. And look, that's the nature of the beast, though. But you and I can also look at somebody's campaign and go, I don't think so on that one. I
Yeah.
knew the guy we've been talking about, the superintendent named Ryan Walters. I knew once
Mhm.
he embraced the white power stuff, he was going to win.
Oh,
And
really?
it
That.
sucks. Oh God, yeah, yeah. It's big here. It's big here.
Mhm.
So think if you were Caucasian Oklahoman and you'd been here for generations, and you
Mhm.
had not been rich yet. The dream
Yeah.
of you getting rich is lower, and then all of a
Mhm.
sudden, the people that were below you used to be the natives and the blacks. The natives, they've all got money now, and they're not all.
Yeah.
A lot of them have money now, and the tribes have figured out how to run casinos and hotels and all this other stuff, and it's working.
Yeah.
So people are moving above you, and that's an uncomfortable feeling. And
Mhm.
I think a lot of that is they feel like they've been left behind. Donald Trump spoke to white Oklahomans really well.
Mhm.
He literally, and rightfully so, they have a reason to complain that nobody's looking out for them. But
Yeah.
as a small businessman, nobody's looking out for me either. They're not
Mhm.
special. The only reason politicians look out for people that give them money.
Yeah.
That's how it works. If you don't give them any money, or your family doesn't give them any money, or your union doesn't give them any money, yeah, you don't really matter. I mean,
Mhm.
that's why I'm in city politics. I don't care what party you are. I got to try to fix your problem. Otherwise, you'll be at the next meeting again, and the next meeting again.
You every now and then see those videos, right, of the city council meetings, and I'm like,
Uh,
oh my god, where do these people crawl out of?
oh, dude. So the guy who tried to keep me out of the school board meeting, um,
Mhm.
he unfortunately keeps doing TV interviews, and you and I both would give him advice and say, "Don't do any." And they were like, "Well, do you know this the big old tall guy that was with him?" He goes, "Oh yeah, I know him. He's my brother." And I'm like, "Oh, don't say
Oh
that." I mean, and
god.
this is as the guy suing him. I'm like, "Oh, don't say that." You just admitted there's a connection.
Hmm. Oh goodness.
And right, because then it doesn't look like it was impromptu. It was organized.
Mhm.
So hey, I feel bad for him, but that is where we're at. Let's talk a little more about that movie. I mean the series, because so
Yeah.
there was 5 or 6 parts to it, correct?
Yeah. There are six
Who
parts
did
in.
who did you find to be most disturbing?
Mm, I think it would have been, for some weird reason, I found Saddam Hussein really
Oh,
weird. Yeah, it's like a very odd
oh,
thing the way he grew up and
yep.
how
And
he
tortured
and
tortured animals and shit as a kid.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
like can you think like if you saw a kid at that age walking around with a metal stick or whip or whatever the hell he used to carry around and torture
Yeah.
small animals and scare people, you'll be like, yeah. But
Yeah.
think about the frenzy. Like if you appeal to people's fear, they will still vote for you. And they
Right.
actually really liked him initially. Same with
Well,
all of them, to be honest.
okay, so I for anybody listening, I know this sounds like a setup because you said Saddam Hussein. So have I ever told you I worked with his cousin?
Uh-uh.
I'm not shitting you. The guy's name is Amir Hussein, and he
Okay.
ran either the Air Force or some some deal for him. Colonel in the Air Force. And I'm like, did you know how to fly a plane? You know, I'm one of those guys. That doesn't mean you know how to fly. So I'm working at a restaurant called Al Rubay in Kansas City, Missouri, when I'm a young kid. And the owner of it is a nomadic Kurd, which Saddam Hussein was a Kurd. And I don't know if the owner was related or not, but in the middle of his rise to power, we got a bunch of these guys over from Iraq. And they were working as waiters in the restaurant while they were going to school for engineering. Sounds very Indian, doesn't it?
I know.
Right. So I'm working with all these Middle Easterners, and I do not speak Arabic or Farsi. It's inexcusable for as many years as I worked with them, but I don't speak any of the languages. So this one guy, everybody's all excited this guy's showing up. So he's somebody. But he shows up, tall, skinny guy, about 6'3", but an intensity to him that is unusual. I think that's fair to say. So I get to know him pretty well. He keeps trying to date my sister, for God's sakes, and which was a little weird because I studied him pretty well. But he always had a pistol on him. He was never unarmed, and back then you weren't allowed to carry guns like that. But the U.S. government brought him here, so he must have been one of the close inner circles of Saddam Hussein. And as he was killing everybody off, this guy some way or another got out of the country. Funny as hell. He could play a drum on a plate better than anybody I've ever seen. And in a moment would go from this psychotic nutcase to the funniest human being you've ever seen. But he had been tortured by Saddam Hussein. They put metal poles behind his calf muscles and then hung him up.
Oh, wow.
Literally. And the tear marks and everything are there. You can't make this shit up. And I was like, God damn, dude, what happened to you? And he was like, motherfucker, you don't torture me. And he'd go off into a rant. And he didn't look like Saddam Hussein, but half of the other people I worked with did. But this guy looked different. He had a big, gigantic ass nose. He almost looked Iranian, but the nose was like a hook one. But literally worked with the guy for years, years and years. And
that is so weird.
Right. It's his cousin. And I don't think I've ever told a story about this guy ever. But now that Saddam's dead, it doesn't matter anymore. And he was like a mobster that gets moved to another city. He was so in the public eye, nobody thought anything of it. And I didn't think anything of it till I saw him in shorts and saw those goddamn mutilated legs.
Oh, wow.
Right. But here's the thing. He walked around like nothing happened. Didn't care. I mean, it was crazy as shit. Yeah. Okay. I don't know why I went off on that tangent. Oh, because you said Saddam Hussein was your
Yeah.
Yeah, he's crazy. That boy's crazy.
Which one was the one you found the most weird dictator-ish?
So I thought, I always look at it and go, who did I watch as a kid and not understand what was going on? And Idi Amin literally looked like a preacher. He had a big old smile, real warm and everything. And then he was just killing people right and left. But that, the big thing they opened with is you have to be a good narcissist. I mean, Saddam was a great narcissist. The fall of Saddam, the real rumor in the not really underbelly of the CIA was he couldn't be bought. That's why they got rid of him. You could buy off everybody else or give them something they needed to keep him in power. That there was something oddly honest about it. With all of this other bullshit he was doing, but that he wouldn't corrupt himself to the U.S. And that's what it was actually about.
Yeah, because if you even see,
I don't want to get you in trouble in India talking about too much of this shit. So.
What? This is all based on characters from history. If it resembles any person living, that is not really my problem.
We don't mean it. Exactly. But I think it's bizarre that I ended up in this. So I had a kid working for me, or not for me, with me. God dang it, what was his name? His dad was known as the Colonel. And he was a South Vietnamese colonel. And when the fall of Vietnam happened, Americans got them out and moved his family over. Tommy, it was the guy's first name. I guess I probably shouldn't say his last name. But anyway, so his dad goes from being a colonel in the South Vietnamese army to he was an Orkin pest control guy crawling under houses, doing pest control. But I worked with specific people involved in the large end of Vietnam. And this is just because I worked in restaurants. This isn't that I was special. That's where they were. And he and I would sit around and bullshit about politics at 15 and 16 years old, like you and I do now as an adult.
Oh, wow.
Right. And then I worked with all these other guys and the Amir Hussein guy.
So every now and then when we talk, I realize that there's some untold story that you haven't yet mentioned.
Shit. Well, because I don't think anything of it because it's just, this guy made great food. Honestly, that's what I knew him for. He made kebabs that tasted better than anybody else's kebabs, and he wasn't even a chef. And they had like the 2-foot long ones that were just nothing but the reason it was beef tenderloin marinated in garlic and onions and olive oil. Shit, it was delicious. So,
that does sound yummy.
and that's the guy that I spent hours with having coffee after work, or most of them, those guys didn't usually drink, it didn't seem. So the bigger folks, but and he didn't talk about any of his military stuff at all.
Okay.
After I said, "Can you actually fly helicopter?" I think probably did me in on that conversation.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so we watch all of these people, and you go to that 6 degrees of separation, and I don't know how the hell it happens with me, but I end up in the room with a lot of these crazy fuckers. So.
Sean, here is where someone will agree with you and be like, it's that goddamn immigration policy that we have in America.
Right. But, you think of all of these guys came in and did great stuff. That's what's unique. It really, the Mediterranean influence or Middle Eastern influence that I had, I understood what the nomadic Kurds were. I understand what the different types of Muslims were at that time that were fighting. And I don't know anybody else that had that experience. I got to hear the inside Vietnamese story about Vietnam rather than a story that I was seeing. Think of how unusual that was at 15 years old to get the colonel's kids version.
Inside scoop on it rather than what the PR narrative of it was.
Right. Yeah. And so does that make me special? No. Does it make me question authority more? Fuck yes.
Yeah.
So I would go with Idi Amin to answer your question earlier, just because that is the guy you got to be afraid of. People loved him, even though he was doing that terrible stuff. They loved him. And the theory is you'd rather be feared than loved. Idi Amin didn't last very long. Saddam Hussein did. Yeah.
He did. What was it? 30, 40 years? Something like that?
I think he was 20 something. And then the longest one was Gaddafi. I think Gaddafi lasted the longest. And I wasn't overly, his stuff doesn't impress me as much. But he held on the longest. But he liked being the nutcase. And Mussolini liked being the nutcase and knew he was playing an acting role like an opera singer. Mussolini's an interesting one, but, Italians like a strong male figure. They like that. And so he gave them exactly what they wanted.
Yeah. That's the thing, right? Part of that is also the strong men who say that I am the only one who can fix your problem. That's how you
even
win.
Though I
even though I might have created fuel.
That's right. That's the big one. And you just go, most societal. Okay, so here's my political lesson before you and I go.
Yeah.
In politics, the reason you have to get everybody at the table is because you have to throw them a piece of meat. You have to have coalitions. Things do not get done by one person. Donald Trump, in a matter of 45 days, had the vaccine for COVID. That literally, and he gets no credit for it whatsoever because it was a cluster after that. But he really and truly should get credit for that. But one person just can't get anything done. You've got to get all of these people on board. And to get them on board, you have to throw them a piece of meat. You don't get to keep all the meat yourself. It's real simple. Now, you look at that big steak and go, I want all of it. Okay, well, you're going to get killed if you take all of it. How about half of it and you divvy up the other half? That works. And none of us, everybody wants to have the whole thing. And that's what ends up getting them. You look at that. So the tyrant deal is, so then they kill off all of their people around them that help them get in power. Hell, that was your insulation. Now you're wide open to assassination at that point.
Oh, yeah.
Crazy shit.
Getting back to like the teachers thing, I was looking at something the other day, which was how the technology movement from Silicon Valley, right? It's actually affected us in a very weird way where everybody now is more individual than we ever were. Right. And what that did was that it kind of dissolved the collective bargaining power of any group.
Yeah.
Because say, for instance, you are a teacher in a school that pays really well and all of that. At times you look at the other teachers protesting and you couldn't care less because your life is fine, right? Yeah. Like one day you might go, one day you might go down there and protest, but the second day you're like, ugh. The same thing with like, if it's not your exact suffering, you don't really want to do much about it. And you fighting for them is awesome, but.
So what I have to do at this point in my life, so I'll be 60 next month. And I know that doesn't sound like a big deal to everybody anymore because you're like, well, you'll live to this. And you go, I'm in the last quarter. No matter what, I'm in the last quarter. I mean, like the clock is ticking. And so you start to think about what legacy do you want to leave behind? And you've been around me enough to know I am not afraid to try any task. I mean, I'm not a person with an appropriate amount of fear. So I watched these guys create fear in these teachers. They went on strike about 8 years ago, and they have punished them for this strike like you're a bad girl and isolated them and cut money from their budgets and threatened them. So this year, the culmination of all this bullshit is they had a law waiting to go on the books that said they could not collect union dues from state paychecks. And if that law would have gone through, it would kill the two unions, which, they're not doing anything anyway. It really wouldn't matter this year. But that kept the union silent while Ryan Walters came in and did all these abusive new tactics. That's what people don't understand. There's an undercurrent to shutting the people up that helped you and I be the people that we've become. Look, obviously you are well educated. I had the option of being well educated. I ignored a lot of it, but I had the option.
Ignored it 5 times. Let's be precise.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And so as an adult, I feel like I want to make sure or ensure that legacy is that I stood up for these people and was on the right side of history because education matters, and not that it matters to people. Look, you and I are already the beneficiaries. So we don't get to talk like it's something we need. We already got it.
Yeah.
Our deal is we've got to make sure it's available for the next generation that comes up. My kids are going to be fine. This is about other people's kids.
Yeah. At times I do get caught up like ranting about education and its importance with some of my friends, and they're like, what is your problem? Aren't you like really well educated? Leave it alone. If they want to raise dumb kids, let them do it. And I'm like, dude, it's not the point. The country becomes dumber as a whole.
Yeah. So the deal is what they say is it's about parents' rights. And look, I would say that's true. So the most educated group in America, maybe 20 years ago were Jews, because the moms all had college, not all, most moms had college degrees. So they would make sure that the kids don't. you guys, Indians in America, are now the most educated group, and you're the highest earners also. It goes together.
Mhm.
So it does matter. And you know, in the country where we don't have a caste system, you can start
Mhm.
out poor here, and with a good education, you can have a damn good life. That
Oh,
does
yeah.
not exist. That does not exist in many places. And we don't give a shit whether your family were untouchables in India or not.
Mhm.
Nobody cares.
That is
And
true.
one, it doesn't make any sense to us anyway. You go, so just because that dude said that to you, you went along with it? Fuck him. You know, fuck that guy. And so we don't have that. Our story is the person who came here with nothing, or the person that started with nothing. You know, my kid's grandpa was an orphaned Native American kid in Seminole, Oklahoma, and he took care of his brother until the state came and got him and put him in an orphanage. And they luckily were adopted by the mayor and his wife of
Mhm.
Pawhuska, Oklahoma, and gave him an education. And then the guy became worth millions and millions of dollars. That is America.
Mhm. Oh,
We
yeah.
can't fix shit of what happened to you, but we'll give you an opportunity to do something if you want to. But you have to take it. No one's going to give it to you. You got to go take it.
Mhm.
So
Oh, yeah.
it still exists, but it's getting smaller.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The mobility is reducing. Yeah.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, I mean, we're getting as bad as other places because, you know, people don't want you to do better because you take something away from them. I know, it's crazy. So how are we doing on time?
We're 1 minute. Oh, we're less than a
Oh,
minute.
sure. My God. So people have to listen to me for an hour and a half.
Mhm.
I apologize in advance.
Anyway,
It was
do
good.
listen to our podcast on Spotify and subscribe. If anyone's watching our dumb faces on YouTube, hit the like button, subscribe, leave us a comment.
There you
We'll
go.
get to you.
Cool. All right, my friend. It was good talking to you.
Always a pleasure.